Welcome to Weather and Ag in Focus. Thanks for joining me today. I get the opportunity to visit with all of you, especially on this rather wintry Tuesday. I'm Bridgette Readel, Ag Director here at WDAY, and looking forward to hearing what everybody else is seeing for weather today. So if you are out and about and you are curious to share what's going on in your world, please go ahead and give me a call. You can reach me on the JLA Insurance phone line to give weather reports, and that number is 701-293-9000. You can also reach me by ag@flagfamily.com, which is my email address, and you'll find this live stream on Facebook and YouTube under WDAY Weather and Ag in Focus, as well as on Acres TV. If you haven't signed up for Acres TV yet, remember, that is a free app that is sort of the Netflix of agriculture. You get the opportunity to catch up with what's going on here and around the U.S. as well as most of North America, farm by farm. We are the only weather and ag news videos that are shown on Acres TV, so follow us there. Back to that weather. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a snowy, snowy day out there, as we have heard. So here's what we know. We are in a winter storm warning for the Fargo-Moorhead area this afternoon through Wednesday. That storm warning extends well into Minnesota and is coming to us from the central part of North Dakota. The snow will turn to a wintry mix today in the valley, and with all the snow mostly west of the valley, there's a little bit coming in here. Now, an afternoon update for us, we can expect this snow to mix in with rain at times. I've had reports of rain in the central part of the state, like McIntosh, Logan County. Also up in Foster County around Carrington, there was some rainfall earlier. Roads were slick. In fact, I've already had a report of a semi that slid off the road. Thankfully, he's already back out. So expect that snow to turn over fully to snow tonight, and that's going to be into Wednesday morning. Now, there will be areas that could see 6 to 10 inches of snow, but after the melting and compaction, it's probably going to look like it's closer to a 4 to 8 inch snowfall in some areas. There will be localized areas of slightly higher snowfall going on. Now, if I could, Addison, I think you're able to bring up on our live stream the map from North Dakota DOT, Department of Transportation, that shows where we're at for roadways across the state right now. I-94 going all the way across the state looks like it's just blue for wet. As you go north to Grand Forks, you're going to see some snow-covered areas from probably about the Gardner to Highway 200 north of Hillsboro, and then wet to Grand Forks, and it looks like we are good to go in the northeast corner of the state in Walsh and Pembina counties. Now, you folks in the southeast part of North Dakota in the bottom of the Red River Valley, there's a real strong chance you are indeed going to continue to see more heavy snowfall happening than others in the central part and certainly the northern part of the state. Also have had a report that right now there is no travel advised in Roberts County, South Dakota. So things are changing quickly. Please stay tuned for more weather updates throughout the day. And always, if you have something to share weather-wise, you can reach us. Again, the JLA Insurance phone line, 701-293-9000. Well, as we think about this snowfall and how that's going to impact us, I've also sent Addison a link to the U.S. Drought Monitor, and if he's able to bring that up for us, I can give you a little synopsis for those listening how that drought monitor looks as of right now. If we reach across the state of North Dakota, the western third looks to be a bit on the dry side. Most of western North Dakota would be in what we would consider probably a D2, which is considered a severe drought, to a D1, moderate drought. In that area just south of the Missouri River, so probably real close to the Watford City neighborhood, you're going to see a pocket of extreme drought. That's a D3 drought in that area. Across the border counties of North Dakota, we will see some severe drought conditions or moderate drought probably, and then we also see that taper off up into northwest Minnesota to abnormally dry. There's the north central and northeast parts of North Dakota look like they are continuing on average. How much will this snowfall help us? Every little bit counts, right? We're going to take what we can. If you look at end-on stations around North Dakota, we are currently seeing probably 20% of the state still has a frost in the ground, but the majority of the state is already frost-free We want to see this melting in, helping to restore some of our subsoil moisture. Let's see how things start to look as we get closer to spring. I understand that there's plenty of farmers who would say moisture right now is all right, but we're going to need some time to get this crop in the ground, planted, and maybe even looking to germinate, and then we could get a nice rainfall on top of it, and that wouldn't be so bad. Will that happen? Well, you're going to find out if you tune in on Thursday during the Jay Thomas Show from 2 to 5 here on WDAY. We will have our spring weather special. And Dean will be highlighting the weather calendar for the remainder of the year, or excuse me, through the remainder of the summer, through the growing season, so we get an idea of what things are going to look like. Are you planning your planting time, thinking about buying fungicide in case it's wet more so than you thought? And what about all those upcoming family events, reunions, and weddings? Well, here's your chance to start solving those problems, see what the weather's like, pick your dates as appropriate. So, plenty of reasons to be joining us. And that weather special is brought to you by Welton's Tire Service, as well as Jiffy Lube of Fargo. And don't forget, Roe and Joe's Junk Hauling. You need it to go. Roe and Joe can help you do that. Well, with those things going on, with weather-wise, there is also a update that's coming on in the form of a press release. And this press release introduces a new bipartisan bill from the U.S. House and Senate, and it's proposing innovative solutions to our farmland access crisis. As many of you know, average age of farming, average age of farmers across the U.S. is about 58 years old. And today, the new Producer Economic Security Act has been introduced in the House and Senate. That was brought by representatives from Illinois, Iowa, Connecticut, North Carolina, Hawaii, as well as New Mexico, and Senator Tina Smith of Minnesota. This act is to support young ranchers and farmers in accessing farmland. It would authorize a new pilot program to address the interrelated challenges of land, capital, and market access for producers by providing innovative and locally led solutions. The bill really helps to focus on our domestic food supply and establishing this pilot program through USDA and its agency, the Farm Service Agency, FSA. So in order to help revitalize and strengthen our farmland for years to come for new producers, this is one way to do it. And that is, again, also a matter of not only food security, but national security for all of us. Every time we talk about our food supply, that is a matter of national security. And indeed, we touched on that with our guest yesterday, Chris Sherman. Chris did an excellent job. He's with Tech Support Farm right here in West Fargo. And he talked about protecting your information because you, as producers and agribusiness people, are certainly important to our national security. And if you have questions, you want to get ready for the spring, want to make sure that you have strong passwords, a good VPN, you're looking at encryption when you're working with your bank or your crop insurance agencies and so many more, you're going to want to talk to Chris over at techsupportfarm.com. Chris will be more than happy to visit with you. Lots of things there that he can share. Now, we are going to have a guest joining us today. That guest is, in fact, hold on, one of us has to flip her email so she can read. Okay, we're going to be joined by Chris Jones. He is the Senior Director for the NASDA Foundation, and we're going to talk about something called the BeSure Campaign. So, what does all of that mean? Oh, goodness, sounds to me like you're going to have to hang on until we get through the markets from Jesse Allen at the American Ag Network so we can find out. Again, we'll be joined by Chris Jones, Senior Director for NASDA Foundation and the BeSure Campaign when we return. And welcome back to Weather and Ag in Focus. Thanks for being here today. Hopefully you're not out shoveling yet. There's probably still a little bit of more snow to come, but you might be working in the shop, getting some things done, maybe cleaning out a bin, wanting to get some grain hauled before we get ready for this season to go. Well, if you're doing those things, we appreciate you taking the time to tune us in at WDAY 970 AM. Also, wanted to give a shout out to those who have been sending me their applications for my Assistant Ag Director internship. I'm ready to take more. Don't you worry about that. We'll get kids lined up throughout the school year and through the summer months. What I'm looking for is students who are sophomores in high school to sophomores in college who are interested in spending a day with me in studio. We're going to interview guests, talk about headlines, and so much more. Students have done things from helping when it comes to cutting commercials and also to going to sales meetings. So it's a full day of learning. And if you're interested, drop me a line, ag@flagfamily.com. Love to send you a application so we can get those students signed up. I'm excited to announce it for April. I'll be going out to Beulah. The Beulah High School has an ag class on ag communications. There's 5 young women in the class, and we're going to do the show from Beulah that day. All 5 girls are going to be helping. So we can even make it a group event if we need to. Speaking of a group event, there's a group of us today, and that brings in my guest, Chris Jones. He is with the NADA Foundation. Chris, I hope you don't have the snowfall we have today.
Definitely no snowfall, Bridget. It's been rather warm here in the DC area, but we have enjoyed some breeze. So maybe that's the bringing of the future weather.
I think it probably is. So, all right. I think I accidentally said the NASDA Foundation, but it's the NADA Foundation, right?
No, it's NASDA, NASDA, but we
Okay,
always just say it's
it
the
is.
NASDA Foundation. It's the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture. So we just shorten that into NASDA.
Okay, well, that's what I was wondering. And here we go, Chris. What's NASDA? What do y'all do out there? I mean, we talk about state departments of agriculture, but they have an organization?
Yes, we do. So NASDA really has two sides. Number one, it's the policy and advocacy side, which focuses in on the states and being the voice of the states into DC and work as co-regulators, but then also from DC out to the states and really talking both ways. The second aspect is really the foundation where I'm a part of, which is the uh, education, outreach, and research side of things from a project work or implementation standpoint. So really, as we think about the voice of the states, but then also the hands and feet and what we can implement out in the countryside.
I would venture a guess that our local state departments of agriculture are certainly members of NASDA, so you'd be familiar with Doug Goring as well as Don Peterson over in Minnesota, correct?
Most certainly, they are some of my favorite folks.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. So, all right, Chris. Yeah, one of the things that I read about recently was the BeSure campaign. But frankly, I might be the only one listening today who knows what that is. So, can you share more?
Sure. So the BeSure campaign really started at this is what its seventh year, I guess, and it's actually organized by the Growing Matters Coalition, and that's a group of ag industry stakeholders that includes Syngenta, BASF, Valent, Mitsui, Bayer, Gowan, and PBI Gordon. And it's supported by the American Seed Trade Association, CropLife, American Soybean Association, NASDA, and the NASDA Foundation. And what this is at its core is a public service campaign that promotes the best stewardship practices when using neonics on farms and urban landscapes. And we're really stressing through this campaign the importance of reading the label when using these products. Reading and following the label is first and foremost requirement when you're handling any pesticides, not just neonics, but any pesticide. And this is just a campaign to get out there at the beginning of the growing season to say, be sure that you're thinking about what you're doing and reading that label first.
Okay, so as someone who formerly has worked in the ag chem industry, I don't think I can stress that enough about reading the label. And I know we get busy. And it
Mhm.
happens when you're literally on the trailer doing mixing and loading. But what are some of those things that one might read on the label that is going to give them better direction when it comes to this campaign? Any suggestions right there, Chris?
Yeah, so on any given label, right, and labels do go through states, they go through all the regulatory processes. But you think about what's on there, right? It's the proper storage, it's the proper disposal details, guidance about drift, pollinator protection, applicator safety information. So, and the thing that we have to think about too is that labels can change frequently. So, what may have been on the label last season or the season before, the guidance may have changed, the rules, the regulations may have shifted, and so it's important to be sure that you're reading that label with every purchase, with every season.
Boy, I cannot emphasize that enough that things will change and checking those labels from year to year matters. Uses change because we have things like the Food Quality Protection Act that happens with the EPA. So we have to make sure that if any new uses happened or old ones disappeared, we're aware of that and we're not off label with it. You also mentioned so many important things like safety of the applicators and the handlers, but also the reentry intervals. So if you're a crop scout and you're looking at a field, you need to know what was sprayed and when, and that comes from the label to know when you can re-enter the field. And buffers. We know that the Endangered Species Act has especially come more into focus in the last year or so, probably longer, probably about the last 3 years. We've spent more time talking about it and knowing what your buffers are because there's so much variability from product to product. So I might sound like I'm hammering this home. I have done this when I've been in our state pesticide recertification classes helping to teach, but I don't know about you, Chris, reading the label to me is probably one of the most important things we can do and having it with us at the time that we apply as well.
Exactly. And what I tend to do as I'm looking at things, whether it be at home or I'm working with folks, it truly is taking a look at that label. I tend to make notes for myself of just those core reminders because then it becomes a quick checklist. It becomes something that I can go back to and have a guide. I always learn a lot by writing it down and really thinking through everything and having that list that can go right back to it.
I would agree with you tremendously. Now, let's talk a little bit about proper stewardship, why that's important as well from your aspect, Chris.
Sure. Well, when you think about it, right, it's the fact that we're reinforcing the practicalness of stewardship, right? Because it protects pollinators, it protects the wildlife. You were just mentioning the buffers and the zones and things like that. It just provides that opportunity for that protection. And we know that neonics are a tremendous product that are used on farms and in urban landscapes because really they are have that selective effectiveness against those destructive insects. And so, with the proven safety that's there, we know that people and the environment uh, can be protected by the use of these products in a proper fashion. So that's where that label really comes into form and fashion, but with the critical nature of neonics themselves and how they can be integrated into integrated pest management practices, we need to be sure that we are thinking about what that looks like from the grander scheme of the community, not just from the people, but also from those pollinators of the wildlife, thinking about that greater community. And in turn, we know that the use of these products can result in higher yields, the economy benefits, but then also not just the individual users, but the actual communities themselves with where the farmers, ranchers, and producers are engaged.
And I would really agree with that. A good point to make to many is that farmers and ranchers don't strictly rely on pesticide control. There's so much more cultural control. Where we live, we use leafy spurge beetles in order to control the spurge plants, and we don't just use pesticides when we do it. And I know the neonicotinoids get a bad rap in many cases when we talk about beneficial insects. But let's remember that in so many of the insecticides that have begun to come out in the last few years, they are incredibly specific to the insecticide. So the insecticide comes out, it's very specific to the pest that it's going to control. They're not all broad spectrum anymore like we might have had in the past with, say, chlorpyrifos, etc. What's really changed is those insecticides might be specific to how insects are classified, like their mouth parts, the chewing, the sucking mouth parts. There actually makes a difference in how the pest is controlled, and again, which insecticide that we use. And okay, Chris, I've got lots of questions about how you're involved with this campaign, how we can support proper stewardship, and really, I think probably a big question is what can be done with treated seed down the road, because we know as we get to planting season, this will be a question and concern for a number of producers. So we're going to listen to our bottom of the hour news, and when we return, Chris, you and I are going to talk about just those things. Thanks for joining us. It's a fabulous day here on Weather and Ag in Focus, even if it is a little sleety, slushy, snowy. It'll be better soon. I mean, it's April, you guys. It's going to be okay. And another thing that's going to be great to look forward to here in April is the national championship. NDSU Bison football team is headed for the White House on Wednesday, April 9th. For those of you who can see me on the live stream, you can tell I'm a little bit of a Bison fan. And so here at WDAY, we are packing up the PetroServe USA microphones and bringing you all the action from Washington, D.C. That's where our guest, Chris Jones, is sitting today. We will be everywhere the bison are while they're in Washington. Listen for updates, look for behind the scenes videos as they visit with President Trump, also with Secretary of Interior Doug Burgum, and of course, more coming from individual team members. And you can follow that on WDAYradionow.com and all our social media channels. This is brought to you by PetroServe USA, the hot tub and sauna store next to Costco's in West Fargo, and Rowan Joe Junk and Haul and Removal. When it's got to go, call Rowan Joe. Online at rowanjoejunk.com. I would have sang Hail the Bison, but many of you know how that song ends, and that's not suitable for public radio, so I'll have to do that separately. But our guest today is Chris Jones. He's the Senior Director for the NASDA Foundation out in Washington, D.C. We've been talking about the BeSure Campaign. So how has the foundation gotten involved in the campaign, Chris? And, what's some of the support that you're giving for the proper stewardship of the campaign?
Sure. And so NASDA and NASDA Foundation really started to support this campaign a number of years ago, and we're just one of the many, I'll say, trade associations or groups that are supporting the industry through this. And that includes groups like American Soybean, American Seed Trade Association, CropLife, and many others. But the NASDA Foundation has been engaged in a lot of the advancement of pesticide education, as well as enforcement and compliance through some of our training programs. And we work directly with between our states and with EPA on the Pesticide Inspector Residential Training Program. And so that's PERT, P-I-R-T. And PERT equips pesticide enforcement professionals within the states, as well as tribes and territorial areas, with knowledge and skills to ensure proper pesticide use, compliance with federal regs, and environmental stewardship. And so this includes field trips and learning from one region of the country to another, from one area to another, and allowing these inspectors to get together and share best practices, because we can start to do that, but then also elevate what they're learning out into the public sphere and looking at the end users as well. And we know that by training inspectors on best practices for pesticide application, storage, disposal, we're able to then translate that into some ideas for consumer use as well.
Chris, let's talk a little bit about foliar application of insecticides, and because that's really kind of what we're focusing on here today. And when we do that, do you have some reminders when it comes to our farmers when they're self-applying, or even some of our custom applicators who might be listening? And we go through pesticide recertification training in North Dakota every 3 years. Many of us just finished our testing or our recertification in this current cycle. But maybe we didn't hear all the things that we should be paying attention to that you could remind us of for foliar application.
Yeah, specific to foliar application, number one, and I think we've said this a few times, both you and I, Bridgette, we've said read and follow the label, right? That's first and foremost what we have to take a look at. But then there's also thinking about the proper or the interactions with other pesticides, and we have to be sure that we're either avoiding that or making sure that it does work together. Adopting an integrated pest management program, that's very, very important. But then we have to think about how we're using all application equipment appropriately, and then thinking about the temperature inversions that may exist right during this time of year and throughout the season. But I would even say one final aspect to think about is to communicate with your local community, and that could include your neighbors, with your local beekeepers, or with other folks that would be engaged in this way. So if I had to say the two that that always stick out to me are, number one, read and follow the label, but then number two, communicate with your family, with your staff, and then with your local community.
Chris, you made mention of so many different points in there that I want to be sure to highlight. Integrated pest management, and we mentioned this earlier. It's not just about using a synthetic product, because there are so many different cultural practices that we can use, whether it's watching in the field to make sure that the beneficials are taking
Mhm.
control of the situation. So for instance, if we're in a field with soybean aphid, do we see lacewings? Do we see Asian lady beetles who are going ahead and providing that control balance where we don't have to use a synthetic insecticide? Temperature inversions, they matter, period, no matter what product we're spraying, but particularly in the case of herbicides for weed control. And for those of us who do custom application and or farmers who are self-applying, there is an inversion portion on the NDON app that you can get from the state of North Dakota, so you know when an inversion is likely in your area. The communication is huge. Making sure that we know where beehives are. North Dakota does have, through the Department of Ag, a website that should locate all beehives. And I have heard farmers and applicators say, yeah, but they're not all there. Someone didn't give updated information. The contact information is outdated. We're going to use the best information that we have possible. It might not be perfect, but that responsibility lies on both parts. The beekeepers, which we appreciate anytime they share information so people know where the hives are, and then also for the applicator to reach out and make sure that the beekeepers are aware, it's time to put the bees in the hive. I'm going to be spraying, I'll be respecting the buffer zones, etc. Neighbors like to know if they're non-farming neighbors as well as what's going on, because when you see the plane fly by, that matters. And speaking of the plane, we have so many different application methods now, not just by ground. We can be looking at plane. And as we see more products get labeled with aerial drones, that will make a difference as to what's flying in the air. So making sure people know what's going on and being comfortable. Lastly, one of the things you mentioned that I always find interesting is tank mixing, because that's a big deal in my world. Nobody wants to see a sprayer load turn into jelly. And that can happen if you mix the wrong things in the wrong order. So that we're back to reading the label, Chris, making sure we know how those things should work in conjunction with the others so that we don't have a very expensive, not able to use tank load of product. That's going to matter. Now, as we approach spring seeding, and so many folks are treating their seed. Okay, so why do we treat seed in North Dakota? We are doing that to ensure that bugs stay away from it. Okay, we are also can be adding some other things that can give it a bit of a boost to get this seed up and started in the germination stage and out of the ground. But occasionally we may have treated seed and we have some left over and it may have insecticide on it. So Chris, through the BeSure campaign, are there some suggestions about what farmers could be doing with leftover and or treated seed?
Sure, and I would break this up into is it a smaller quantity or a larger quantity? So let's first talk about smaller quantities. Number one, um, you can return that excess treated seed to the original containers, and it should be the original seed lot containers themselves. So being sure that you have what was supposed to be right in that container, because that has again that label that was very specific, and then understand if the seed is intended for storage and then the subsequent planting that's appropriate. And that could be utilizing some of that smaller quantity in times when there's some weather issues or if there's replanting that is necessary. Now, when we're talking about the larger quantities of seed, we would suggest that you be sure, yes, there is a pun intended there, but be sure to consult with the state and local authorities to help ensure that the disposal plan that you're putting in place is in compliance with all appropriate regulations. And this is where you, as an individual farmer, rancher, producer, could really work together with those local and regional authorities and thinking about the Department of Agriculture, et cetera, where we could really work together to put that disposal plan in place.
So really, for folks to learn more, Chris, it's not just about reaching out to you at NASDA, but our state departments of agriculture as well can be of use to us, correct?
Exactly. So the state, and that's where we come in, because we know that all 50 states are slightly different, but there's some commonality. But they all do work throughout this area in terms of pesticide education and then also appropriate regulations.
So besides the BeSure campaign, Chris, are there other areas that the foundation helps to campaign and be a part of? I know you mentioned some training programs and so forth earlier. Are there other things you'd like to highlight for us that you do?
Sure. So NASDA Foundation works, again, our mission is education, outreach, research. So we have a number of different programs that we work through, whether it be the training that I mentioned with our PERT. We do have some programs that we're doing in the Ohio Tennessee Valley area in terms of conservation, which would be soil, water, and habitat restoration. Working with farmers to ensure that the land is used as well as possible, but then also we work in areas of workforce development, business development, and also the next generation. So you're talking about university students and high school students. We work tremendously with land grant institutions to bring about knowledge of what the agriculture sector looks like today, because it's definitely not what you would think of. When I was growing up, folks said, "Well, this is what a farmer does." The ag sector is a tremendous sector to be involved in.
And larger and more encompassing than many probably realize.
If any job that you want to do in any organization, you can do in the agriculture sector.
So, Chris, this is just for my own nosy knowledge, but how long has NASDA and the foundation been in existence? In some ways, I feel like I've only recently learned that this organization exists, although I don't think it's very recent for its establishment.
No, NASDA overall has been in existence since about 1916, and has been working across all the states. But again, we elevate the state work. So it is not about NASDA, it's about the states themselves. And then the foundation started in the early 80s with the work that we're doing. And again, just trying to enhance the work that the states are doing.
Well, I am looking forward to seeing what other campaigns and training modules and so forth come forward. So anytime you have something new, just drop me a line. I'd be happy to share it with our listeners as well. We've got farmers and consumers who definitely want to know what's going on.
Excellent. I'm always happy to be a part of this. Thank you so much, Bridgette.
Thank you, Chris. And folks, hold tight. We got to come back and talk a little bit about the weather, and I might just have some fun ag headlines to catch up on before the end of the hour. We'll be right back. Well, howdy, everybody. Glad that you're here. And Dean Wysocki's joining us. It's his turn to be on the road for a change. So, Dean, what's the road like?
Well, I'll tell you what, Bridgette, coming in from DL, nice little snow band, the same one that went through the FM area, deposited about, an inch and a half of snow out in the DL area. Now, this is just a teaser. The storm is entering the Pacific Northwest, and this is just what we call warm air advection snow out ahead of it. So this is really not going to amount to much. What you see is what we get. We're not going to get much more for the rest of the day, with the exception of areas to our south and west. They'll pick up more snow out of this. But we should mix in a little bit of rain with this as temperatures warm up in the valley. But again, west of the valley, this is expected to remain all snow. And when we mix in that rain, that'll probably melt off what's on the ground right now, which we picked up a little over an inch, not much, but just a touch over an inch. And then we watch for the rain system to come our way as we head into tomorrow. Now, we were getting some indications we may get dry spotted with this system overnight, which would limit the snowfall. Does not look to be the case right now. So we'll see more snow developing after a rain-snow mix this afternoon. That will change back to snow after dark, and we'll start to see that snow increase a little bit as we head into the overnight. Now, the worst part of this storm comes tomorrow. We will see heavy snow. We'll see a couple rounds of it. I think we'll see one in the morning hours to affect the morning commute, especially just after the morning commute. And then we'll see another burst of moderate to possibly heavy snow coming in towards the evening hours on the backside of this system. All in all, throughout the FM area, up and down the valley, in the FM area, about 4 to 8 inches. Some spots could get a little bit more, but higher amounts to our south and west, let's say towards Oaks, Lisbon, Wahpeton, and then curving up towards DL. So both west and east of the valley, those areas could get just over 10 inches of snow out of this. Now, this is going to be that wet, heavy, what we call heart attack snow. Couple of things I want you to keep in the back of your mind. If you are out traveling tomorrow, and I ran into this in DL with just an inch and a half of snow, when this heavy, wet snow really starts coming down tomorrow, watch the street lights, because there was many intersections I came up on in DL where the lights were covered. You could not tell if it was red, yellow, or green. And I do believe we're going to have that same kind of problem tomorrow with the wet nature of the snow. This is going to stick to a lot of objects while it's falling heavily. So please be careful if you're out traveling tomorrow. And again, the worst part of the storm, probably from about 8 in the morning through about 5 at night. That's going to be the heart of this storm as we head into tomorrow. Again, a general 4 to 8 inches of snow expected in the valley. The 4-inch amounts probably up in the far northern valley, and the higher amounts in and around the FM area down to the south. So travel's not going to be pretty tomorrow. We'll just give you a heads up. This was a teaser today. The main event comes tomorrow.
Well, and as you can see on our live stream right now, you can look out from our studios to the Interstate I-29 headed south. It definitely is wet. Traffic still seems to be moving at a fair clip. We'll see how that changes. But like Dean said, tomorrow looks like it's going to be a bit of a different challenge. So thanks to all those who are on our snowplow crews. We appreciate the fact that you're going to do your best to keep highways and streets open for us through the next day or so. This should probably melt fairly fast, though, Dean. I mean, we're going to see a bit of a warm-up after this happens,
Yeah.
don't you think?
Yeah. I mean, the areas that get 10 inches of snow, it'll stick around for a couple days. But, by the weekend, we're ready, pushing 40, maybe in the 40s. And, again, the sun angle this time of the year in April, it's getting higher and higher, and it doesn't take much for the sun to melt away a lot of this snow. So a lot of this will be melting away by the weekend. And next week, we warm up. I see a lot of 50s in the forecast for next week. So this will last a couple of days. That's a good thing about these spring snows. They don't last long, but they can be a big pain. And tomorrow, don't take it lightly. Even though it's that wet, heavy snow, if it was a dry, light, fluffy snow, we'd be looking at blizzard conditions tomorrow. I don't think we'll quite realize that due to the heavy nature of the snow. But again, that plays when it's falling very quickly, and it'll fall at a rate of 1 to 2 inches per hour. at a time tomorrow, that's going to add up on the roadways. And driving in slush and slop like that, that could easily take your vehicle off a roadway, especially when it starts to get slick. So just be very aware. If you have travel plans tomorrow, you might want to alter your travel plans. Hold them off till Thursday when the conditions improve.
Well, do keep in mind, this is April Fool's Day, and Mother Nature fooled us. We all thought we had spring before, and here it is, which not unusual.
Yeah.
This is a time of the year we get storms in April. That's not really a surprise. I do want to encourage folks, though, throughout today and especially tomorrow, if you're on the road and you are noticing changing conditions, if you can safely call us at our phone number, the JLA Insurance phone line, 701-293-9000, we'd welcome road reports. But again, we really want you to be safe because, as Dean mentioned, if we get slick spots and then you've got this heavy slush on top of it, just like that semi-truck at Carrington that slid into the ditch a little earlier this morning, that can happen to folks as they are out and about here as well. So one last ag headline I've got for you guys. Okay, so Dean and Addison, true or false? There is a rule in the United States that peanut butter, because we raise peanuts in 13 different U.S. states, peanut butter products must contain at least 90% of actual peanuts.
I would say true.
I'm gonna have to go false on that one.
It is actually true. That is a rule. So even when you're making that peanut butter filling to go inside the Reese's peanut butter cups, it still has to be 90% peanuts. And 1 acre, which is the size of a football field, makes enough peanut butter for 35,000 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. So chew on that. All right, folks, don't forget the weather special on Thursday. Stay tuned. Jay Thomas is coming up next. He'll take your calls then.